Welcome everyone. Hello, my name is Camille and today I'm going to show y'all how to do a fun and sort of wearable Halloween eyeshadow look. This is for if you want to be a witch or if you want to be a fabulous princess, you can follow along with this tutorial. So to do this eyeshadow, I used the Queen of Hearts palette from Colored Rain, and I also used a little bit from Too Faced's Razzle Dazzle Raspberry palette, but I'm gonna give y'all the rundown of just generally what types of shades I used to do this, and there are other palettes you can use. There are a couple I saw online. One was called Opposites Attract by e.l.f., and the other was the Violets palette from Juvia's Place, and both of those have really similar colors to the ones that we're using today, but the colors that I've used, I laid out on arm swatches so you can get a better idea of what we're using. I used a transition shade that you can only barely see because it's basically a nude shade. You need a matte purple shade, you need a dark metallic purple shade, a black, and a metallic lighter purple shade. So any palettes you find these from are fine. While I do the eyeshadow, I am gonna try to kind of sprinkle in just general makeup tips so that hopefully even if you don't come out with this exact eyeshadow look, you can get some kind of good tips from this. So I am going to do a spell that's going to get rid of all of this makeup, and we're gonna go back in time so I can show y'all how to do this witchy Halloween eyeshadow look. Okay, so my face is clean, it's been moisturized. Now the first thing I'm gonna do is prime my eyelids with some concealer. And this is important because it just gives you a nice even base to put your eyeshadow on. So I'm using ColourPop's Pretty Fresh Concealer. I did moisten my beauty sponge with a little bit of water. And now I'm gonna set it with just my normal face powder, which is Coty Airspun powder. I'm not putting it on my under eyes yet, and that's because I am going to be doing all of my eye makeup before I do any of my face makeup, because I'm using really dark colors, and if any of them were to fall on my face when I had already done my foundation, then that would mess up my foundation. I also recommend having either a paper towel or a couple of squares of toilet paper near you, because I am going to be putting on some eyeshadow with my fingers, and it's easier to just be able to wipe them off on a paper towel or some toilet paper. The first thing I'm going to get into is going to be the Queen of Hearts palette from Colored Rain. We're going to start with Princess in the crease. So Princess is this kind of pinky color. So I'm going to use, this is a really good brush for just laying down a color in the crease. It's from Real Techniques and it's called the Deluxe Crease Brush. And I like this one a lot because it just has a really big fluffy head. So I'm going to pick up a little bit of Princess, and I'm just gonna put it right up in my crease. Not quite up to the brow bone. The thing about a transition shade is it really is there just to help you blend other shades on top of it. So it's important, but we're not gonna see the color that much once once all of the eyeshadow is done. So I want enough of it there that it'll do its job and help me out, but I don't need it to look perfect. Next on the agenda is I want to get more of a purple color in my crease. So I'm gonna use a slightly smaller, fluffier brush for this step. So this brush is from Eco Tools and it says blend and smudge. So I'm gonna be using the blending side, and I'm still in the Queen of Hearts palette. I'm gonna use Ladyship, which is this dark matte purple right here. And I'm gonna put it also in my crease, but a little smaller of an area than where I put my transition shade. Don't try and load up your brush with a ton of color and put it on all at once, because that's a really easy way to make it get really patchy. Just use a little bit at a time and build up the color. It does take some time to do that, but the results are a lot better. The next thing I'm gonna do, I'm actually gonna get out a different palette. Now I need Too Faced Razzle Dazzle. It has this black that's, it's a matte black, but it's got little little pink and purple glitters in it, and it's really pretty. It's a very unique shade, so it may be hard to find an exact match for this shade, but if you don't have it, then just a matte black would be totally fine for this step. I'm using sort of a smaller brush. This is just a little domed brush from Morphe. It's an M321. So I've got a little bit of that color on my domed brush, and I'm just kind of lightly stamping it on the outer corner of my eye. Once again, don't load up your brush a super huge amount with this color. So as you can see, I'm going on kind of the outer third of my eyelid and up into the crease a little bit, which I'll use to blend later. And now we're gonna blend so that there's not kind of that harsh line between the purple and the black. And when I do that, I like to just use a clean brush. This is kind of a densely packed, sort of flat top brush. I think this is just from e.l.f. Like I said, I'm just gonna use it clean. I'm not putting any eyeshadow on it. And I'm just gonna go back up to where I was in the crease and sort of carefully go back and forth. Next thing is actually going to be cutting the crease, and this is a totally optional step. If you're either not into cut creases, like you don't like how they look, or if you just have a lot of trouble doing them, then you don't have to do it like this. And cutting the crease just means putting down some concealer to make a really defined line between one eyeshadow and the one below it. But if you decide that you're not going to cut the crease, then on this step, you're just going to take your metallic purple shade, whatever it is that you're going to use. I'm using the purple metallic shade from the Too Faced Razzle Dazzle palette, and you could just take some of it on your fingertip and just put it in the inner kind of third of your eyelid. This is from a set of Morphe brushes that I have actually, and it's just a little concealer brush. It's kind of flat. And I'm taking a little bit of my same concealer that I used before. So I'm going to not talk very much while I do this actually, because it takes some concentration to get it right. I took some of the concealer that was, you know, where kind of the boundary is where I want the concealer to stop, and I just patted it a little bit with my finger to blend it in so we don't have just a huge amount of concealer and then nothing right next to it, because that can cause problems with blending. I'm gonna set that concealer that I just put down. So I'm gonna grab this purple shade, like I said, the light metallic purple. This is also a Morphe brush. It's an M167, and it's just a little kind of oval flat brush. It's very densely packed. So I'm just putting this shadow where I had my concealer. So y'all can see how there's that very defined line. If you start pressing in more of the color, you get an even nicer, more intense shine. So the last color that I'm gonna put on my upper eyelids is going to be Queen Mother, which is this dark metallic purple. So I am gonna grab some on my fingertip, and I'm just gonna use that to kind of blend that blank space between the black and the light purple. What do you think of the eyeshadow so far, Marceline? Do you want me to do you next? Okay, so I'm gonna grab a clean part of my toilet paper that I got out, and I'm just gonna use this to grab off any bits of eyeshadow that might have fallen under my eyes. I am going to do my under eyes now. I've got my moistened beauty sponge, and I'm just gonna blend that in. All right, now I've got my powder again. Okay, so next thing, I'm just gonna very quickly put on some foundation. Today I'm gonna use Infallible Pro Matte foundation in the shade Classic Ivory. The kind of foundation you use doesn't really matter for this. So whatever your normal foundation is fine. I'm just gonna use this little, very fluffy brush. It's a little bit on the flat side on one side. This is a Real Techniques brush. called the Base Shadow Brush. So I'm grabbing a little bit of the shade Crown back in the Queen of Hearts palette. And it is a shimmery, like white shade, but I'm just using this to kind of blend. This isn't my highlight yet. So I'm just using this to kind of clean up the edges of the shadows on my upper lids so that they don't look too severe around the edges, I guess. This is just kind of a finishing step. Okay, so now we're going to do the lower lash line, and this is, once again, kind of an optional step. If you don't like how eyeshadow looks on your lower eyelids, you can just completely skip this and that's fine. The first one I use is going to be this Eco Tools brush. So I'm using the shade Side, which is just kind of fluffy. And I'm going into Princess again in the Queen of Hearts palette, that pink color that we used as the transition shade. So I'm just going into my lower lash line. So next, this is the last shade I'm going to use on my lower lids is going to be Ladyship again, that same kind of dark matte purple that we used in the crease on the upper lids. And I'm taking that on this little pencil brush. This is a Morphe M431. So I'm just kind of lining the lower lid and then again, kind of using that windshield wiper motion to blend it in. I'm also trying to blend it in a little bit with the corners of the upper lid eyeshadow. Okay, so the eyeshadow is done. So I'm gonna do my eyebrows next. I tried to go just a little bit more intense than my usual brows, and I tried to put a little bit more of an arch on it. And now we're just gonna do some highlights. I'm gonna use my Anastasia Nicole Guerrero palette. This is a highlight palette. It's got some really, really pretty shades in it. I'm gonna go in with Forever Lit, a very pretty white iridescent. So I am going to grab a tiny bit of this on my finger and I'm gonna put it on my brow bone. And you can just tap to make sure that that kind of blends in. And I'm actually gonna grab a little bit more on my fingers to do an inner corner highlight. This is the part that makes me the happiest, is the shiniest part. I was not intending to use blush for this originally, but I kind of want to, so I'm just gonna use a tiny bit. It's a blush from ColourPop. It's called On the Horizon. So I'm just gonna grab, this comes off pretty easily, so I'm not gonna grab a ton of it. And now for my highlight, I'm using one of the prettiest brushes that I have. Actually got this from an Ipsy bag forever ago. So I'm gonna grab like a more of Forever Lit, that highlighting shade that we used. And I'm just gonna kind of dust my cheekbones. I'm just gonna grab a little bit for down the nose. At this point, I should mention, I will not be going to any Halloween parties this year because of COVID, but if you do choose to do any kind of small get-together, small socially distanced, hopefully outdoor get-together with your friends, just be safe. This makeup look relies mostly on the eyeshadow, so if you wear a mask on your lower face, people will still see the best parts. Okay, so now we're going to do kind of some finishing touches. Whenever I like to do a cat eye, I usually use actually two different eyeliners to do that. I like to use Wet n Wild Breakup Proof Waterproof Liquid Eyeliner just to get around my lash line. And this is a brush tip eyeliner. Next, for the actual wing, I like to use CoverGirl. I use this so much that the label is really hard to read, but I think it's Get In Line Active Liner, and it has this just teeny tiny little brush with it, and it just gives you so much control. When you're doing your wing, some people like to put like a piece of Scotch tape where they want the wing to go, and then they'll kind of trace around it. They actually make stamps you can get to put the wing on, but I've been doing winged eyeliner for years, and you know, I'm just gonna go in and do it because I have a habit of doing it a certain way. So I'll lean in a little bit so you can see how I'm doing this. I went a little bit up into my lash line and kind of drew a line over to where I wanted the wing to stop. And then I went to the very edge of my eyelids and I just pulled that line up next to it. And from there, I just kind of make lines above and below it until it's as thick as I want it to be. I hope this makes any sense. I've just realized I've never tried to explain this to anybody before. Alright, so for my mascara, I'm going to be using Maneater from Tarte. And now we're going to make it even more dramatic because I have some false lashes that I'm going to put on. So the lashes that I'm going to be putting on today are from the brand Ardell, and they're just Ardell Wispies, and these are extremely easy to find. You can find them pretty much anywhere that you can buy makeup. Most of the time you will need to trim the ends of your lashes a little bit before you put them on, just so the ends aren't poking you in the eye. I already did cut off just a little bit off of the ends of these. So you don't have to use tweezers for this. You can also buy lashes that sometimes come with a little set of lash applicators, and they look like tweezers, except the ends of the tweezers are kind of like big and curved so that they specifically fit around a lash band. I am gonna grab my lash glue. This is Duo brand Brush On Adhesive. I'm holding the outer edge. These are the right ones, so I'm holding the outer edge of the right lashes right now. And I'm gonna put on some lash glue. And once you apply your glue, you want to wait about a minute, because when you first apply the glue, it's extremely liquidy. And if you let it dry just a little bit, it'll become more tacky. We'll wait on that. And now I'm just going to pop them on, essentially. Once I get them on, I usually kind of squeeze to make sure they're lined up. Okay, the left ones are looking like the glue is probably tacky enough now. What? Okay, now that we've got lashes on, it's time for the very final finishing touches, which is lipstick. That's, I think, the only thing we have left. And I'm gonna use a lipstick that I don't get to wear very often because it's really dramatic. It's called Screamer from ColourPop. And if any of you watch Sophia Nygaard on YouTube, this is her collaboration with ColourPop. So something I like to do sometimes if I want to sort of shift the color of my lipstick, I get some eyeshadow and I just kind of pat it over top of the lipstick. And I'm gonna use a shadow from the ColourPop Lilac You A Lot palette. So I'm going to use Fluff, which is this center shade. It's sort of a metallic light purple, and I'm just gonna pat that over top of my lipstick. So if this is enough for you for the look you're going for on Halloween, then you can stop here. I think this will be a great look for me to head into work wearing today. But I am gonna add a couple more little things before I get done. Rhinestones that I got at Target. I'm gonna put a couple underneath the wing of my eyeliner. All right, we are all done, and now I get to put on the rest of my costume, so I will be right back.